Okay, hello, welcome everyone to this side event to the FAO Science and Innovation Forum. This side event focuses on co-creating responsible innovation ecosystems that enable systemic change of food systems. And we are really excited to welcome you all to this event. We have quite a lot of participants registered, but really also aim for a lot of interaction during this event. And so people will continue joining, I think, over the next few minutes while we start with the introductions and why we set up this panel. So if you move to the next slide, like the real core question that we want to address here is how to bridge the demand for systemic transformative change of food systems with innovations and innovation ecosystems. And this is also triggered by this quote by Einstein, and kind of we put that there to further challenge us, is that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them. So we really aim to trigger a bit out of the box thinking here. And we have set this up as a very informal conversation. It's a structured panel, but we really want to make it a pleasant conversation also to listen to interact with. And therefore, we've compiled a panel. If you move to the next slide, Heather. Yeah, we've compiled a panel with different perspectives and different pieces of the puzzle on how to further bridge innovations to this demand for systems change and transformative change of food systems. And before I introduce the panel, I also want to emphasize that we really hope for interaction with you all here in the audience. So we've set up different tools to do it. We have, of course, the chat, and we really invite you to put already any questions, comments, or suggestions during the interactions during the chat. And we also have set up a Jamboard for questions and for capturing also your thinking. So if you move to the Jamboard, and then I'll introduce the panel. Oh, yeah. So here, if you click, and we'll put a link in the chat here of the Jamboard. We'll put the link to the Jamboard in the chat. So here we have structured this Jamboard also to introduce yourself and to also provide your perspective on the questions that we are discussing with the panel. As we know, apart from the initiatives that we've gathered here in the panel, there are a lot of other efforts and other ways of thinking about these type of questions. So we also really encourage you to use the Jamboard and introduce yourself, as well as if you move to next slide, you will see the questions that we will be discussing also with the panel. Yeah, so now I'm very excited to introduce to you the panel. If you go to the previous slide, yeah. Yeah, so we have here seven people panel. We have Heather Zornitzer, who is the coordinator of the Innovative Food System Solutions portal and also part of co-learning. And we have Jennifer Idogon, and who is an entrepreneur, and she has set up. She's part of Marvi Auto Dryers and also an Eat Safe finalist, one of the innovation challenges that has been set up by GAIN in collaboration also with the Innovative Food System Solutions portal. And like that, we have also Binyam Kassa and Gidasu, and he's an entrepreneur from Italim Trading PLC and also an Eat Safe finalist. Then we have Daniel Masson de Cross. He's a senior research associate from Cornell University. We have Mark Scott. He's a senior innovation research and scaling specialist from the CGIAR and Wageningen University. We have Megan Steele. She is engaging on the innovation ecosystem of CGIAR's Accelerate for Impact platform. And we have Oliver Kemp, a senior associate of GAIN, and also a core team member of the Innovative Food System Solutions portal. So, I mean, this to not overwhelm you with these introductions, you will get to know them one by one as we have the panel discussions, but just to present to you this roundtable of panelists, and before we delve into the question. And like this, also feel very encouraged to put your own introduction in the Jamboard or in the chat, so we can connect with you during the session as well as afterwards. And very welcome to everyone, as I think, and as many participants have now started joining. So this just as a short introduction before we delve in to the questions. So if you move to the next slide. Yeah. We've structured the panel. I mean, we know that there are many events ongoing at the moment. And we have also thought about how can we make it an interesting conversation to listen to engage with, as well as to try to get many questions and comments from the audience. But of course, it's also limited in some way by the online setup, but it also provides a lot of potential. So therefore, again, for participants maybe who joined a bit later, we have the chat, of course, for which we invite you to use throughout, as well as we have the Jamboard, where you will be able to see the questions that we will be discussing with the panelists, and where we also invite you to put your perspectives and your thoughts or other related questions to that. And so we have the structured panel discussions during 50 minutes, and then we have open space for direct audience interactions also afterwards. So as you have questions during the panel discussion that come up, do please post them in the chat, and we can further address them also during that. So we will start this conversation with a short introduction of different initiatives that have a couple of things in common around that question of how to bridge in the innovation ecosystem with food systems and systemic, responsible, and transformative change. And these different initiatives really have in common that they look across innovations to the food and agriculture innovation ecosystem. They also really aim to bridge better the demand for innovations with the supply, and within these processes to support more holistic thinking and working with innovations, thinking about unintended consequences and other. And while we kind of and this kind of the setup of the session really originated from different conversations across the panelists and across these processes that came up, and that we wanted to move forward, also engaging other participants like you all in this conversation and in this thinking moving forward. Now, we first start with a short introduction of each of the initiatives. This will just take 2-3 minutes per initiative, and then we'll go to further discussion and lessons learned. So here in this first question, I asked the panelists, like, can you shortly describe the initiative that you are representing here? What is it, and what triggered its development? So we'll start with Heather, who is representing the Innovative Food System Solutions portal, also in team with Oliver, and linked to also work that Jennifer and Binyama are doing. So yeah, Heather, go ahead.
Thanks, Rosalind. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm on the west coast of the United States, or good afternoon or evening, wherever you are. It looks like we have people from all over, which is great, following the chat. So the Innovative Food System Solutions Portal is really an open access initiative that was launched in 2021 as an ongoing and collaborative effort. It's started as a way of capturing innovative solutions that were being sourced and listed, and a number of catalogs that were being developed by different groups, different inventories that were tracking and trying to collate forward-looking food systems innovations. And it's become more than that. So it's a portal that actively engages with actors across the food system and tries to work with both innovators and funders and investors, as well as researchers, people working at the nexus of nutrition, as well as sustainable agriculture and economics and policies, and really tries to focus on food systems innovations that take a systems approach to healthy diets on a healthy planet, while keeping equity as a central focus. So at the moment, it's a website, it's a portal that has resources and directories of investors and funders. It has this database of solutions that's growing, and it has a number of guides and resources and toolkits that have been shared by collaborators and are sort of collated into one place. But the portal has become a bit more than that over the last year and a half, where we saw that there was a lot of demand to make these types of tools more accessible and usable. And so it's also become a place where we're working with a number of partners to tailor learning process support for food systems change in co-learning and very collaborative ways. So I include the link here. You will all have the links to follow up on this. And I think the biggest point with our impact that we've seen over the last year and a half, as it's sort of continuing to grow and groups are joining and individuals and teams are using the portal and portal resources, is that we're seeing small and medium enterprises, small businesses, and youth networks in particular are connecting, they're finding each other, and they're using those resources to learn and share and to move their ideas towards action. So we've worked with almost 600 entrepreneurs and innovators, some of which are here today as panelists with us. We've worked with food systems dialogues, innovation challenges, courses at different universities, both professional and student courses. And it's really trying to take this deeper engagement with stakeholders about thinking through problems and challenges, but also opportunities with moving ideas towards action. I'm going to pass the word to my colleague, Oliver.
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. I'm Oliver Kemp. I'm part of the programs team at GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. And most of my work is around innovation and environment broadly. So I work on those projects at the nexus of nutrition and environment, climate change, and so on. And I got involved first in this Innovative Food Systems Solutions Portal work, or the IFSS. It's a bit of a mouthful. In what I'd call my magic time, you know, the time that you conjure up out of nowhere while you're working on 1,000 other things. And increasingly, I've really seen the huge potential that it has when we all get involved and use this as a way to bring together all of the different partners and stakeholders that we need to work with when we want to deliver innovative change. So as Heather was saying, we've brought together a fantastic range of different types of stakeholders, everything from kind of national representatives, people who are working to implement projects on the ground, academic institutions, private sector, small and large startups. I could go on, I'm sure, innovators and entrepreneurs, of course, at the core of it, and then NGOs like us, hopefully contributing too. And it really is amazing how much we can achieve. I wanted to touch on one example that is live today, because actually in Copenhagen today, we have the final of a particular innovation challenge that we ran using the Innovative Food Systems Solutions Portal in partnership with our colleagues in a team called Eat Safe. Some of you might have come across Eat Safe. It's a big bit of GAIN work around food safety and the links between food safety and nutrition. And we managed to surface these incredible innovations, many of them. There was a big kind of screening and judging process initially, and today is the grand finale, where a few of the best companies are pitching. These are all companies from Nigeria and Ethiopia, and I think hopefully we'll have one from each country today. I can certainly see Jennifer on the call, so I'll hand over to Jennifer so that you can tell us a little bit about kind of the other side of the table and what you do and your experience of the IFSS. So thanks, and looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Ada. Indeed, one of the participants, and it was a very interesting experience. And our initiative was to focus on the processors in the traditional markets, reducing the drudgery of their processing methods, and also reducing the loss of biodiversity that their method of processing contributes to. Like, you know, they use firewood and charcoal to dry their fish, meat, and all perishable products. So our dryer was focused on that, and was also focused on contributing to the sustainability of their livelihood, you know, boosting the resilience of their livelihood. Because what we realized was that these crude processing technologies were making many processors go out of business. So through the IFSS portal, we were able to do a backcasting map and brainstorm on the idea, and it's been a very interesting journey. It has made my idea more holistic, and seeing how it can contribute further to the sustainability of the food system. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you also, Jennifer, as well as Oliver and Heather, for that introduction and the link between the IFSS, the GAIN Innovation Challenges, and the entrepreneurs on the ground. So that is a really nice connection. And I think we have Binyam also joining maybe later. Maybe he has a bit of a connection problem. But we'll move then to also the next initiative that really tries to look across different innovations and how that can link to responsible systemic change. So I'll ask Danielle to shortly introduce the Wild Futures program.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So the Wild Futures project came out of, I think, of a recognition from a lot of the work that we were doing with global assessments to work towards finding solutions to climate change and more sustainable food systems, that the magic sauce in a lot of the integrated assessment models is innovation, but that innovation is represented in those models in a very, 1 million miles away from the ground sort of view. And we wanted to get a better sense of what are the things that are included in that sort of the magic sauce of innovation, and what could be done to make that happen faster. Given that the challenges that we're facing from the food system are so big, it really is critical to be able to find ways to accelerate solutions. So the idea with Wild Futures came from that sort of motivation. And then the goal then was to sort of try to scan what are existing ideas in the pipeline at different levels of maturity, and try to get a sense of how far away they are from being ready to be implemented, and when they're ready, what would it take to get them implemented and to be able to achieve impact at scale. We also did a lot of work in trying to do a backwards review of innovations to get a better sense of how did food system changes in the past occur, what types of lessons can we learn from that. And I guess the motivating questions that we had around this is really, can we find ways to accelerate necessary changes in the food system, taking lessons from the past so that we don't repeat mistakes from unjust and unsustainable solutions in previous food system changes, and trying to find new methods that allow us to more holistically look at the innovation, not as sort of just a single outcome, but as a complex process that involves actors at different stages with different motivations and incentives. I think I kept it under 2 minutes.
From another angle, but connected also to that kind of systems change, and looking across innovation, particularly at these accelerators, and how to identify and act further on those. Then we'll move also to the Accelerate for Impact platform, represented here by Megan. Megan, yeah, if you can shortly introduce this platform and what triggered it to establish it. Thanks.
Sure, thanks, Rosalind. So hello to all my fellow panelists and also to everyone in the audience today. My name is Megan Steele and I'm representing the Alliance and CGIAR's Accelerate for Impact platform. And just to give a little brief overview about what our initiative is, the Accelerate for Impact platform is a venture space that aims to support incremental and transformational innovations by bridging science and entrepreneurship. So we're building on CGIAR's legacy of research and innovation and working to close the gap between research labs and market by scouting, incubating, and accelerating existing or dormant research products that are stuck in the pre-commercial stage, or working with the most visionary teams to design novel breakthrough solutions addressing the world's most pressing challenges at the nexus of agriculture, environment, and health. So what triggered the development of this initiative? Well, transdisciplinary research and partnerships with many actors of the innovation ecosystem are key, and we know without these, there's really no viable impact pathway for research to translate into benefits. So it's essential that we design and execute them in the right way and with the right partners. So what's going on right now in the agri-food industry is we're seeing an influx of innovations that transform how farms and markets look and function. Technologies that are harnessing the power of genetics, automation and robotics, and precision agriculture through the use of big data arm growers with the tools to optimize their productivity through improving yields and environmental health. Novel production and processing systems are reducing the use of unsustainable inputs and can minimize waste across the value chain. And fintech, blockchain, and all sorts of other platforms harnessing artificial intelligence can equip growers with the agency to access complete information and better connect to inputs, expertise, and support. And so the interest in these innovations is growing, as AgFunder estimated $51.7 billion was invested into agri-food tech in 2022. So what is the Accelerate for Impact platform doing about this? Well, numerous more of these research products in their early stages already exist, but if better connected and funded, we could radically disrupt and deliver long-term impact. So the Accelerate for Impact platform aims to connect these scientific products to the market and excite demand for CGIAR scientists. And we really want to strive to play a catalytic role between research and development entrepreneurs who are going to be the drivers of transformative change by developing high-impact science-based technologies that will make our food systems healthier, equitable, and sustainable. So we're really looking forward to hearing about the other initiatives working to bridge this demand, and happy to be here on the panel today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Megan, for this very quick but very informative overview and kind of these insights in the innovations that you are connecting with and kind of bridging the world between the entrepreneurs and the research on that front. So, and we'll come back with more questions also on that now. Then we'll move to Mark Schut also, who represents the CGIAR Innovation Portfolio Management and has a lot of background expertise also on innovation research and scaling. So yeah, Mark, if you can give a short insight on the CGIAR Innovation Portfolio Management and some of the background of what triggered it to move it in that direction.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rosalind, and hi to everybody on the call. Yeah, so I think I quickly went through the participant list, and I see a lot of people have actually contributed to the type of innovation management that we are trying to develop within CGIAR. So for those who are maybe a bit new to CGIAR, CGIAR is a global partnership for research for development in the agricultural sector. And you can imagine that across the whole world, it is designing, testing, and scaling hundreds, if not thousands of innovations. And of course, it's impossible for one person, whether you are a country manager or whether you work at the region or whether you work more thematically, to have an overview of what's going on and whether the portfolio of innovations is actually healthy. And like Rosalind said, there's a lot of advancement, I think, over the last 10, 15 years in science on innovation and scaling. And what we are really trying to do is to think how we could translate that science into a innovation portfolio management system that can help us to have better information on whether our portfolio is healthy, whether our portfolio is moving along an impact pathway to deliver outcomes and impact. And then usually we refer to the Sustainable Development Goals, and try to put in place systems to make that happen. Well, that sounds as a very technical story, and I want to respond to what Daniel was saying. Like, reality, of course, is much more messy. You can have perfect systems, but if in an organization or in your institute there is no capacity or there's no culture of trying to track innovation and use a common set of principles or metrics, then this is never going to work. So besides working on the tools and the metrics and the system, we also spend a lot of time in what are the more like organizational culture changes that need to take place for this to actually happen. What kind of capacities do we need to develop so that we are not just focusing on the artificial information, but also on the deep-rooted systemic changes that need to happen for us to be more efficient and to truly contribute to positive societal impact. So I think I will speak to that a little bit more in the next questions, but very happy to be here and to share some of the experiences and learn from the others. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks a lot. Yeah, and we see already some, if you listen to the different speakers, you hear already some kind of similarity and some differences in terms of the cross-sectoral work and kind of the barriers for impact, or the enablers or accelerators for impact, and how to further act upon those. As all these initiatives are relatively recent. I mean, they all built upon experience that is rooted much deeper, but the way they are set up now is relatively recent, and they are increasing connections between them, and also moving forward. There are new initiatives, other initiatives, complementary initiatives starting in this space. So we really want to reflect a bit on what are some of the initial lessons learned from these initiatives when really considering this need and opportunity for a systemic change of the food system. And yeah, so what are some of the initial lessons learned? And we'll start with the Wild Future initiative with Danielle. And yeah, as this initiative also really focuses on the kind of the need for systemic change. Yeah, Danielle.
Yeah, challenging to do this in 2 minutes, but I'll see what I can manage. Cut me off at the limit and we can continue conversations later. I think a couple of the main things that we've noticed is any successful innovation is really not one thing, but it's a bundle, it's a cluster of different inventions and changes in organizations and societies for that to happen. And even the most simple sort of innovation is often kind of a combinatory process of previous inventions that are combined in novel ways or applied to new solutions. And I think that has been a fascinating thing that we've been picking up, that it's really this bit of combining pieces together that ultimately is one of the driving factors of whether or not something is a successful, ends up being a successful innovation and making true outcome changes in the food system. I think another thing that we've been picking up, especially as we start reviewing past innovations and food system revolutions, is that the innovation process is very complex and unpredictable. And so the outcomes of those processes can have all sorts of unintended consequences. Some of them are quite good. Some of them could be negative, which also sort of reinforces the need of having bundles, because the bundles then can help reinforce the positive outcomes while looking at ways of mitigating some of the negative. And in a lot of cases, those bundles that help mitigate the negative are really those cultural, organizational, and policy instruments that look to sort of develop sort of guardrails or rules of what is acceptable or not acceptable by society. and that those are really critical in terms of true successful innovation, because that without those, you don't develop the sort of social license and trust that's necessary for larger scale adoption. The other thing I think we also forget is the processes, the outcomes of innovation processes sometimes can seem very quick, because all of a sudden from one day to the other, it feels like we've changed the way that the system's working. But often that is at the tail end of a very long process of slowly building up all the pieces that need to be put together before you can actually see the change. So it may be years of hard work building, slowly putting together all of the ensemble of complementary pieces that are necessary for successful innovation until you see that that real change happen. And then the change can seem all of a sudden, but it really is the outcome of a fairly long process. And so as we're starting to do things with investing and other things like that, we need to recognize that there are time lags, and those time lags are important to figuring out all the pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Daniel. And like you said, you could go on, but I'll give also the word to the other panelists now. But yeah, great. Yeah, let's maybe move also from this kind of a great overview across innovations to also very practical perspective. From Jennifer and Ollie, like, what did you see as some of the initial insights of going through the process, for example, using the backcasting exercise, and what would be some recommendations on these parts moving forward?
Thanks, Ro. Maybe I'll jump in, and then we can go into the detail of the experience for someone who's really, as I said earlier, seen it from the other side. So I think the first thing with the IFSS is that it really is designed as a kind of convening point and something that can bring everybody together, all of the stakeholders. You've probably heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. I always think it sort of takes a village to create an innovation, you know, and to see it implemented, to see it through. And so what we've learned is that if you can unite a group of people, a group of organizations around a shared ambition, even if they have slightly different goals within that, even if some are looking very specifically with health and nutrition goals, others with climate and environment goals, others with gender goals, and others simply with commercial or, you know, economic development goals, then you can still have this overarching shared ambition, which everybody is pulling towards, everyone is working together to achieve. And that can then combine into something which is a really kind of practical roadmap, which factors in all of those different goals. So the point about looking systemically at innovation is that you can really pull in all of the different pieces in the puzzle that need to come together in order to make an idea successful. And that's where the experience of, I hope the experience of the participants in our challenges and those who use the IFSS is kind of unique, because this backcasting exercise enables you to look at the long-term goal that you're seeking to achieve, and then sort of draw the pathway backwards. It's what some consultancies call future back thinking. Draw the pathway backwards, which helps you to understand all of the different barriers that you might experience along the way, all of the different opportunities along the way, and then to really piece together that path. So I'll pause there because it's more relevant that we hear from Jennifer if we have Jennifer with us. But I'm happy to come back to that point, because I really think that's the sort of process we and our partners need to go through, and it's kind of the point of these platforms. They can enable that partnership and that process. Mm-hmm. Jennifer, over to you if you're with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Oliver. Well, that's very true, because, you know, using the backcasting map, I now saw that my idea had a lot of barriers, and I had to think it through with my team for the possible solutions. So you realize that, okay, like what I would say is that everyone has an idea, you know, oh, why can't we do this to make this better? But the process of the idea becoming a successful innovation that makes the system work takes a lot of work, takes a lot of thinking through, takes a lot of partnership and collaboration. And that's what I learned from my initial lesson, because I just thought, okay, I have this great idea and I can go solo with it. Then I realized that I can't just go solo with it because there are many barriers. I have to involve other people. So there's need for partnership, there's need for collaboration, you know, to actually make the system work. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that very pragmatic and inspiring view also from how it triggered your different thinking and anticipating certain barriers. And I think that's also something that comes up in the CGIAR portfolio management, like what are some of the barriers or that. Mark, would you like to share some of your insight on initial insights on and lessons learned of that portfolio management and moving forward? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can, and I will build a bit on what Jennifer and Daniel have already referred to as, you know, the need for packaging or the need for strategic partnerships, because, you know, we're all part of a larger innovation ecosystem or agricultural system or food system, and, you know, our success, whether we are researchers or entrepreneurs or policymakers, it depends on what other people in the system do, which can sometimes help us, and it can sometimes go against, you know, our specific objectives. And I think what I have learned over the past years is that in any kinds of systems approach, whether it's innovation systems or food systems or farming systems approach, what I've seen is that sometimes, you know, this holistic way of looking at problems and solutions, it can sometimes paralyze people. So what I mean with that is that, you know, once you start seeing that everything is connected to everything, and there's only so much control that you have over your specific part of the system, it can almost paralyze people in terms of going into action. And so what we are trying to do in CGIAR, you know, in operationalizing systems approaches, is to try to make it very tangible and actionable. So, and I want to point out 3 questions that what I've seen helps teams and people a lot in terms of, thinking about their innovations and how to achieve impact. So the first one is, what is it that we are trying to develop and scale? And this is basically, you know, challenging teams to be very tangible about their innovation. So it's not, you know, yeah, we are doing a literature review to see this and this and that. No, the question is like, what do you want to achieve with that? You know, and from that literature review, what will be your like prototype, or, you know, will you develop a service or a product, or who would be the next user of that product, and how do you see that, you know, eventually making a big change? So trying to help them visualize an ambition. So that's one, very useful. The second one is like, for you to achieve your ambition, like what other types of changes are needed in the system? So here, you know, we are talking about capacity. Here we are talking about changes in markets. Here we are talking about changes in policy systems. Here we are talking changes in farming systems or in practices. And then the third question is, and this links back to what Jennifer was saying, who do we need to partner with to make that happen? And, you know, that's an essential question, because you somehow position yourself in the middle of a broader network of actors and organizations who you want to change with you. And I think that's also, I often refer to like the importance of fit for purpose partnerships, because it's nice to, you know, have everybody in the room and, you know, have broad discussions about like what is the problem and what could be the solution. But when it comes really to making specific, to solving specific problems, you really need to think about like, who's the best partner in this context where I'm working to achieve this objective with. And then sometimes, you know, you work directly with an NGO, with a business, or with a government organization to make change happen. So just in summary, like trying to operationalize and make systems approaches actionable, I see that works very well for the community that I'm working with.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And maybe for the question, if I can ask a question also to Megan, and it links also to actually a comment that I just see appearing in the chat about, I mean, part of this discussion has now been going a bit, focused a bit on this, on the scaling of innovation or the getting it to impact, but also these innovation challenges like the Eat Safe and also some of the work that the Accelerate for Impact platform is doing is trying to enable a diversity of innovations. So maybe Megan, if you can speak particularly a little bit to that, like to how we expand or organize the ecosystem that develops innovation, and how does the Accelerate for Impact platform tries to support that. And we can also further come back to that part also later, but I think it particularly also applies to some of the Accelerate for Impact platforms. So yeah, Megan, if you can share some of the initial insights on that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know I saw this comment as well, and it lends itself very well to what the Accelerate for Impact platform really thinks about when we imagine systemic innovation. I mean, this connects also to what Oliver and Jennifer were saying, you know, systemic innovation is about connecting with the different actors and having partnerships and collaborations with each of those actors in the system, you know, to overcome those scaling barriers. So a lot of the Accelerate for Impact platform's activities are about how we can ensure stronger relationships between these partners and helping to overcome the obstacles in each scaling path. We've done these venture out events where we've invited our community of scientists, and we've connected them to networks of ventures and entrepreneurs, people who have been successful in scaling their innovations from a lab context onto the market. And at the same time, in learning their lessons on what it took to overcome scaling challenges, we've seen that bridging that science and venture divide it's a mutual benefit as well. So on our side, by bringing more science into venture and capital perspectives, and this is especially, you know, relevant across the global South, we can build better and mutual understandings and align our innovator goals, the investor expectations, and most importantly, farmer and user needs in these partnerships. So in speaking a little bit to this comment about not only scaling these innovations, but also creating an ecosystem and an environment that builds new ones, you know, we're seeing that a new era of entrepreneurial science is already in motion. So scientists are already seeking opportunities to move their work past the lab where it can have greater impact. And when we connect them with other scientists who have complementary innovations, with experts in market, with people who can support financially, that's when we can really spur and create these breakthrough solutions, not only with what already exists, but thinking innovatively and bringing diverse and multidisciplinary perspectives to this. So one way the Accelerate for Impact platform is trying to do this is we're creating a venture space platform, which is a virtual forum for networks of innovators to be made tangible into a hub and connect better. So, you know, that's diversifying the amount of perspectives that can participate in some sort of virtual ecosystem like this, but also bringing us closer together than we would be with our geographies, and that having one space to connect and innovate these new solutions. So that's really where the Accelerate for Impact platform is working towards systemic innovation here.
Great, thanks. And it links actually also to the next question we want to discuss with the panel, is the link between entrepreneurs and research, and how can the entrepreneurial world and the research world further support each other. They are, of course, not completely different, but how can the entrepreneurial spirit and activities and the research activities further support each other in linking to and enabling an innovation ecosystem that drives a food systems or that supports and contributes to food system transformation. Yeah, I don't know, maybe also we'll switch to Oliver. Maybe you want to start addressing that question and we move forward. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it does come back to that point that I was making before about a shared ambition. And I often think that part of the role of research is to kind of lay the foundation of what needs to be achieved, right? Kind of high level goals, the high level call for food systems transformation, and then different levers that we can pull in order to achieve that change. So on the one hand, the research kind of informs what entrepreneurs might work on, but then more specifically, that could manifest in a couple of different ways. You could have a situation where research is directly being taken up and used by entrepreneurs. That's fantastic. It might even be even more direct than that. You might have researchers or academics or university students who spin out a research project into a business opportunity. They actually commercialize some research that they're working on. Or it could be, as I say, that an entrepreneur picks up a bit of research and takes it forward in business. But then more broadly, the research might also be used to inform policy and the kind of enabling environment that is that acts around the entrepreneurs that we're talking about here. And I think that can then lead to other levers that can help to promote innovation, like changes in financing and repurposing financial flows for innovation in the service of environmental and nutrition goals, for example. So I think there can be kind of direct and indirect effects. I think what's really important is that we make sure that the research is kind of focused and that we know the challenges we're trying to overcome. And also B, that it is really well communicated and distributed so that it is actually usable by policymakers on the one hand. A lot of gains work is around that, but certainly also by the entrepreneurial and innovative people who can pick it up and run with it and take it forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. Megan, do you also want to add from your side, as you, with the Accelerate for Impact platform, you're also working on that nexus? Yeah.
Absolutely. So working at this nexus of research and entrepreneurship is really the Accelerate for Impact platform's bread and butter. I mean, this is precisely where we're targeting a lot of our initiatives and trying to maximize the potential of scientific ingenuity through market pathways. And it's important, as you mentioned in the question, to do this responsibly and to engage the right communities and make sure we're prioritizing the correct perspectives in this. And with CGIAR's presence and relationships across different contexts, we can really ensure that this way of scaling for impact is prioritizing the right communities and also co-creating those solutions within those contexts. And so just a bit of an example of some activities that we work on at the nexus of research and entrepreneurship. We run innovation challenges, as you mentioned, and acceleration and incubation programs. And these really aim to act as a gateway connecting innovators with CGIAR's scientific and on-the-ground expertise, while also at the same time connecting them to a web of investors and industry experts, equipping them with market acumen. So you can see that this connection is right at the joint of market and science perspectives. Recently, we carried out the Agritech for Morocco Innovation Challenge in this way, and we collaborated with the World Bank, local accelerator impact lab, and the Moroccan ministry. And this really resonated. We attracted over 350 submissions from 31 countries, and we're really looking to replicate this model in each different context. So targeting the nexus of research and entrepreneurship in different countries. We'll be doing this in Uzbekistan and Egypt in the coming months. And also, in addition to applying this in specific contexts, we also want to look within and do it within our own organization. So the Accelerate for Impact platform is working with a domain-focused accelerator and a venture fund, Rockstart, and we're working to develop a methodology scaling CGIAR science-based outputs with market potential. So really supporting our own scientists who already have the drive to scale their innovations, but maybe need some assistance, right, to get in that next, to know who are the correct partners and who to be matched with to work to scale their innovations. So in the Accelerate for Impact platforms, we're really striving to engage partners across all perspectives, because, like you mentioned, to truly be responsible to all of the actors in the system, it's necessary and important for them to have a voice in the scaling process. So this is something that's important when we work at this nexus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Megan. And Jennifer, I would also be really interested to hear your perspective as an entrepreneur here. Like, how do you see efficient collaboration with the research world, and where would it be useful from your perspective?
Okay, thank you, Rosalind. Okay, well, from my perspective, I think research should not just be done for the knowledge of it. Where I come from, people do research just to publish their journal, to make a name. Research should go to think on how to help the people. What problem are you solving for the people in your community? I think that's what should inform research, but that's not usually the case where I come from. So when there's that gap already, you see that research is already on a path on its own, while the entrepreneur who is thinking to solve the problem for the people is not really informed, but because of the passion to solve the problem, starts a business or an enterprise or an innovation without the information from research findings. So there's already that gap. So in my opinion, I think research should come closer to the people. Then from there, entrepreneurs will be able to use those information to better their businesses and create more impact for the people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So with that, the need for create more impact to the people, I also go to Danielle, as you've also been studying this across, and yeah, what are your perspectives on this, like to bridge further the entrepreneurial community with the research world?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I think one of the challenges with answering that is that the hit rate on innovation is very low, right? And I think so in terms of what research can do, I see two main areas where it can contribute. One is, can we just add more ideas to the table that we can test? And so I think this is where you can have, issues of investing in basic research and other things like that. They may not lead to outcomes in the near future, but they're critical because at some point they may be the seed of a really interesting idea in the long term. And this kind of, to me, is also a bit around Aaron's question, which was, how do we expand access to this? And I think that's actually really critical because we need to have people from vulnerable and unrepresented groups that are part of generating the ideas that are part of the body of things that we might eventually turn into innovations, because each innovation seems to take more effort to get. And so if we start excluding people from being part of the process, then we're going to make that whole exercise much harder to come up with new ideas, and we're going to be excluding entire areas that are important from even being explored. So I think Aaron's question on that, I think, is something that research can play a role in trying to internally be more inclusive, really working to be more diverse in who's being a part of the innovation research space. I think research can also help with how can we improve the hit rate? What are the things that we can do? And to me, that's really a lot of like the work that Mark and others are doing here is, how can we find where the choke points, where are things that tend to fall out before they get to a point where they're making impact? Can we learn from that so that we can solve that? And to me, that's also where, talking a little bit to Jan's question or a comment a little earlier, is that, yeah, the policy part is important, but the hit rate's low. So government shouldn't be trying to pick winners. They should instead be trying to create a pro-innovation environment. And you give the guardrails of what it is that we actually want and what do we absolutely not want. And if we're really clear about those things and we provide that in regulation, then it really should be the role of policy to step back a bit and let the innovation system find what's the best solutions to those problems, given the constraints that are being given in that. And I think research can also be really helpful in terms of informing policy entrepreneurs to sort of approach this space and more of that. How do we set the ground so that it is fertile for innovation to spring forth, instead of trying to be there picking and choosing winners, which I think is probably not the best role for sort of the public sector.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see, Heather, you were nodding also while Danielle was saying. So do you have kind of some of these experiences also with the Innovative Food System Solutions portal that has also been connecting entrepreneurs with researchers around different criteria?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that, we felt was a demand for sort of setting up the portal and the way that we try to engage with research space as well as entrepreneurs and donors, sort of connecting those dots, is thinking about this idea of sort of democratizing access to these processes as well. And I think, you know, this citizen-based science and citizen-based research is something that's really interesting, and that I think, you know, policy has this role, research institutions have this role, but I think there's also something about these innovators that are often these brilliant, creative thinkers that need just a little bit of support with process and access to some of these mechanisms to get involved that can really help drive some of this stuff, kind of pull this innovation ecosystem into a bit more of a democratized space. So that was just to throw that in relative to some of the other comments that are coming up in the chat. I think, yeah, the other piece is to link, you know, to think about the synergies that we're seeing across the different research spaces and across different types of investment spaces as well. So not just focusing on nutrition or just focusing on environmental health or just focusing on equity issues, but having actors in all of those spaces able to speak with each other and cross disciplines and sort of to pull out of silos how innovation is happening. So in terms of supporting this ecosystem of innovation in that way, I think that's a really important, you know, getting people speaking or understanding at least languages across those sectors, in addition to languages, but languages of, you know, ag production and packaging and consumer end and policy, you know, but getting innovators working together to find those synergies and creating that space where it's really ripe for things to take off for impact, not just to scale, but to scale for impact.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and building on this, I mean, you have already touched a bit on this, but looking into the future, what do you think should really kind of be very concretely, what are some of these concrete enablers for the innovation system to do that, to really support that kind of systemic change for multiple goals, for nutrition, equity, environment? So what are some of these kind of enablers that we should really further jointly invest in and co-create from your perspective? And I'll start with Mark. Yeah,
I think that is like, and we've seen it already in the chat, that you know, who defines success? When is an innovation system successful? Like we all have very different ideas about that. And you know, if you would ask a certain company, or you ask a farmer, or you ask a scientist, like it's very likely that the answers of what a successful innovation system is will be different. So I think what we really need to keep in mind is that innovation systems produce and reproduce certain types of innovations and innovation processes. So if the innovation system is not set up to be demand-driven, then it will not produce demand-driven innovations, just to give that as an example. So what I think, and others will make it more concrete, but what is very important is that we are conscious of the fact that innovation systems are set up to produce certain types of innovations. And if we want to change that, then it comes with political commitment, new incentive structures of you know, for example, do we allow scientists to work on innovations that do not have a clear demand? I would say yes, but do we need universities and maybe more applied research organizations every 3 years to do like demand mapping to somehow show that they have an understanding of what people are actually looking for? What are the types of problems that farmers or private sector or governments actually face? Do they align their research agenda or their innovation agenda with these demands or challenges? So there's all kinds of incentives that you could build into an innovation system to make it more demand driven, for example, or to make it more solution oriented, or more responsible in terms of, you know, biodiversity, responding to climate change, needs of specific societal groups.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a very important starting point, that we need to understand that success of innovation systems is something that we can define. Innovation systems can be incentivized to do some things differently, but it comes with political commitment and investment. And I will allow others to give more practical examples of that.
Yeah, thanks. And it seems that also links a bit already to these comments I see in the chat around indeed, like, I mean, scaling on itself is not the objective. It's more other outcomes are the objectives, and scaling can potentially be part of it, but can also have unintended consequences. Or and the scaling on itself is not so much, but it's this, how do you define these kind of this common demand of what the outcomes are. Yeah, and maybe from some of the work on the IFSS, there has been kind of different, like, backcasting with the vision and the impact. Heather or Ollie, would you like to comment a bit on that?
I had something in mind, which is a GAIN example, even if not an IFSS example, although it could have been, because I think what's really relevant here is to look for innovations which end up being the solution to multiple problems, or that end up being a new opportunity to tap into multiple goals. I was in Uganda earlier this year, and what was quite funny is that there was a lot of desire to innovate in the agri-food sector. There's a lot of desire to establish stronger agri-food processing SMEs and stronger food value chains. And there was one group of people who, if you spoke to them, they would say that the purpose of that is to improve nutrition, produce nutritious foods for local consumption, and make sure that there are reliable value chains in place that mean that those nutritious foods get to the people in rural areas and people in the urban centers alike. And then there was another half of those people in Uganda who would say it's all about producing for export. We have a fantastically productive farming economy here. We can produce fantastic and highly lucrative crops. So we need to do that in order to improve our economic standing and become, a middle-income country with agricultural exports driving that. And I think it requires the kind of innovative thinking in the middle of that, and the sort of partnership type of approach, to realize that actually you can create perfect innovative solutions that satisfy both goals. In this context, if anyone's interested, it was the fact that you can very easily intercrop kind of tree crops, including kind of nuts and fruit and coffee and other things that they grow in Uganda, with very nutritious other crops, like notably for us, biofortified beans, high iron beans, which means that you can have simultaneously the export crop and the nutritious crop for local consumption on the same land. It's a new revenue stream for the farmers. It's great for the exports, and it's great for local consumption. And actually, these are beautiful, harmonious agroecological ecosystems, which are also environmentally sustainable, we think. It needs a bit more testing. So why am I telling you this long story? Because I just think that's exactly the kind of example where there's a core innovation. In fact, there are two core innovations: biofortification, intercropping, those kind of on-farm innovations. But what we needed to do was actually align all of the stakeholders between a shared mission, around a shared mission, which was to improve that kind of agricultural productivity, even though it met different goals. For some, economic development; for others, nutrition; and for others, kind of farming incomes and farm sustainability. So I'll pause there because it's a long answer, but I think that kind of way of looking at innovation is a really helpful framing to achieve multiple goals with one solution.
Yeah, where you emphasize the importance of coming around together on a shared mission, and making that explicit, because sometimes we think we all have some kind of shared mission in mind, but we assume sometimes too quickly that what our shared mission is. Yeah, thanks. Danielle, also from your perspective, would you like to add, what do you think we should, looking into the future, we should further invest in to really enable the innovation ecosystem to contribute to kind of positive food systems transformation?
Well, it might sound a little bit self-serving, but I think more of across the board is necessary. From basic research to more applied research, we really need to be able to recognize the importance of this to try and define solutions for the challenges that we're facing. And I think that is certainly going to be a part of trying to any solution to sort of make this happen faster. I think a constraint for a lot of it is that there isn't sufficient resources, and that would be necessary. Now, of course, just increasing the resources won't make the system magically solve all other problems. There's a whole lot of other constraints within it, and we certainly need to then find ways to make the innovation process, the research groups that are part of this, entrepreneurs, that we can be more effective in finding bottlenecks and things like that we can try to reduce. To me, from a little bit higher level perspective, I think it's really critical to, I think it was Mark who was saying, it's really critical to just, we need to have what are the common goals, because ultimately, if we want the research to go in a certain direction, the incentives have to align. And if the incentives aren't there, then we're going to have what we've had in the past, which is that we will have food system change. It just won't be sustainable and just. And so ultimately what we need to be doing is then how do we guide the innovation system in the future so that we get more sustainable and more just outcomes than what we've had in past food system changes. And I think that's where aligning and finding consensus on what the outcomes that we're trying to aim for, and then providing the incentives and the guidance to encourage action in that direction will be critical. And to go back to Aaron's question, I also think it's absolutely essential that we start including more perspectives and voices in this. If you look at who is behind most of the patents, you start seeing that there's a very obvious type of person who is behind most patents, which means there's a whole bunch of people who have ideas and that they see problems and they're not currently engaging or being part of this sort of system to scale up. And that's something that I think we can hopefully in some of these initiatives that to me sound just really exciting, can start to contribute a bit and sort of helping bring a pull factor to getting these perspectives and viewpoints more into the mainstream of the innovation process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points also. Mark, I'll come back to you in a bit. I just want to hear some before also we open it up to the comments, some kind of final reflections also from Megan, Jennifer, and Heather on this final kind of overall question on looking into the future. What do you think we should more invest in terms of further enabling, empowering the innovation ecosystem? Yeah, Megan, and then Jennifer and Heather. Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, I can echo a lot of the same sentiments that were shared by my fellow panelists. I mean, a lot of the issue, especially in blind spots and value chains, is that too few resources are offered for research advances to develop into a point where they can be scaled further. You know, they're stuck in this still idea stage, and especially when these ideas are coming from traditionally underserved contexts, they need more support. And I think this is, you know, an opportunity for the role of government to come in and fill this investment gap and de-risk this earlier research and development that might be too risky for you know, private sector at the earliest stages. And so this you know, earlier investment in this incremental development is going to be crucial. And likewise about what my panelists were saying about these spaces that can really align common goals and outcomes incentives earlier on. I think an enabler for developing the innovation ecosystems further will be having these spaces be participatory of all the different actors in the system earlier on. So when we have these structures, these novel structures, places like moonshot research, where we can get you know, enterprises being built as early as the problem identification stage, we can have the different perspectives of private sector and also the, you know, the ideas of local context going into the generation phase of this. And hopefully that will help to align incentives from the very beginning so that when it is ready to scale, there is sort of a pathway to impact there. So that's the kind of approach that the Accelerate for Impact platform is aspiring to, and I'm sure a lot of the initiatives today during this event.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Yeah, I'll just pass also the word to Jennifer. If you want to highlight some final, or not final, but some thoughts on investments moving forward and what would be particularly useful from your perspective.
Okay, thank you. My thoughts on moving forward, like someone mentioned earlier, innovations, when you have all this platform telling you put up your innovation and, seeking out to guide you to scale it up and make it more sustainable within the food system. It shouldn't just be about who the winner is, it should go more to sustainable linkages, not just, telling you, okay, this person can help you with marketing, for instance, and leaving it there. I think there should be more, like after a while, check up on, okay, how far with your marketing strategies? What have you gained by partnering with this person? I think there should be more deliberate follow-up. It shouldn't just be left hanging, like, oh, we've done our part and the rest is up to you. Then I am also thinking that research should be tailored to the people more. I don't know how it is in the West, but in Nigeria, research is way, out of the line for, what it wants to achieve for the person that is in the local community, the farmer that is on the field. People just think of a research problem and they go about researching it, publish the journal, and that is it. So transferring the solution to the farmers and helping them make a profit or a living out of it, making their livelihood more resilient and sustainable is usually not there. I think that should come up more too. Thank you.
Yeah, really important points also, Jennifer. Thanks for really emphasizing also the sustainable linkages and what you get also from what, and more deliberate follow-up on the interactions. Yeah, thanks a lot for pointing that. Yeah, I see in interest of time, I'll just go very quickly to Heather, while I'll encourage everyone also online to put their hands up already or kind of raise questions in the chat. While Heather, I'll give you the word and then we'll go to some questions between the panelists and then to the further questions. Yeah, Heather.
Thanks. Yeah, not to repeat, I think, any points. I think the only two things I would add to this end, we need to open this space to more actors. And I think that's, we said this in lots of ways. And I think the IFSS portal, some of us fall into the youth innovation category and some of us are youth allies, older than the youth category at this point, but supporting youth and youth-led movements in the innovation space, I think, is really critical to getting some of these new ideas in there. And I think if a lot of us think about this as somewhat of a crisis discipline, also looking for these leapfrogging kinds of ideas, we're not going to get some of those outliers, some of those innovations or innovation bundles that are really going to be game changers without opening up this space beyond the usual suspects. So I think that would be the only 2 points, in addition to what agreeing with what all of my colleagues here on the panel have said, but I think those would be my 2 points.
Great. Yeah, that's a powerful note also to end this part of the discussion. And now I saw that Mark had a question for Daniel, and if other panelists have a question for the other, and well, I'll take questions from the audience, and please also raise your hands if you would like to ask a question.
Yeah, I wanted to build on what Daniel said in terms of we need more, and I agree and I disagree. I think we need more in certain stages of the research or innovation pipeline, if you want to call it like that. I think we need more early stage innovation. So we need more like blue sky research, new ideas, thinking out of the box. There it's better, you invest little money in many different things. But at some point also we need to make decisions about which of these great ideas are somehow are showing potential, and we can take to the next level in terms of piloting them at a small scale, piloting them at a larger scale, and then trying to think about okay, how do we need to package these innovations so that they become available to users, farmers, or other in a sustainable and inclusive, responsible way. And it means that maybe out of the 1,000 great ideas, eventually only 5 of these ideas will actually mature into game-changing innovation, which means that along the way, we also need to make decisions about what to stop. And I think that is something that we need to get better at. There is currently, I think there's too much dilution going on in the ecosystem in terms of trying to keep everything alive. You know, pilot again in a different context, pilot again, but not be explicit about what was a great idea but didn't work out, so we can stop it. You know, we can stop, and I'm going to use the word wasting resources on something that is not working, or perhaps there's another solution that solves the same problem in a much better way. So I think that is also like a mindset and a more systemic change that we need to build into the ecosystem, that, you know, let's embrace failure and learning. You know, not every great idea will be a game-changing innovation that's used by many people and will change the world. And I think there have been various attempts like fail fairs and all these kinds of attempts to really embrace failure. But I still think that in many of the organizations, or at least in the CGIAR, we have a long way to go to report on this and to actually cherish or embrace this. So that's just the point I wanted to make to what Daniel was saying. Yes, we need more, but we also at some point need less, and focus resources on things that have potential and seem to work. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Mark. I don't see actually any hands up from the audience. There are a lot of really great comments in the chat. So if some of you would like to speak up, please do. I see a comment also from Jens, one of the recent comments, and then from Stacia, maybe you want to comment. And I think our Jamboard didn't work so well, that's okay. But if people still have reflections afterwards, do feel welcome to also still put it there. So yeah, Jens, yeah, please.
I can maybe share an interesting perspective. I've just helped launch a futures think tank in Berlin some weeks ago. And we have a cluster on innovation and the future of food in 2050. And all the colleagues so far are a little bit not so diverse. They are coming from the university where I studied in St. Gallen. It has crashed from one of the first places on the business schools to number 300 or something, after having introduced the Bocconi model and the typical business school model. Back in the days, we learned system thinking and so on, and that has kind of gone down the drain. So I'm challenged, and I'm trying to bring myself into this group with the things I think is important, and can share 2 of them with you. The one thing is, when we talk about making an impact in context of the global goals and the global food system, my colleagues are very much, totally focused on startups and lifestyle products and stuff. And I feel this group is not. But I told them what Paul Polman, the former CEO of Unilever, said during the COP21. He said, what we do and do not do in the Western world is almost of no significance to the outcome of the global goals. And I think that's really significant guideline for where to spend our energy. I forgot the second one, but I mean, we are from different, we come from different places, and we see what we have seen, and that causes some blindness. So I think the diversity of the group here is quite interesting, and very inspired by it. And I've shared all the links you have kindly shared with my colleagues in our Slack. So thank you very much for your contributions.
Great, thanks a lot, Jens, and really nice to connect. And I think you really hit an important point also of being very aware of our own blind spots in the kind of the different systems that we operate, and exchanging on that. Also a reflection from Stacia on the comments that Mark made. Maybe Stacia, do you want to reflect further on that? And you also mentioned, I think, participatory stakeholder mapping that many of the panelists actually have been engaged with to some extent. So yeah, would you like to comment or ask a question related to your comments?
I don't really have a question. I feel like I would be repeating what Mark just said. I mean, I've been involved in the stakeholder groups here in Malawi for the last 6 years. I'm a dietitian, actually. I'm a nutritionist. And I came into the agriculture fields through trying to help people eat better. And just really, really came to believe in the coordination and collaboration side of things. We have to work together to get to my goal of diets. And like I've been hearing, everybody has their own goal. And we have to listen to each other and get there together, really let go of some of our goals and listen to other people's goals. But I found the documentation piece really missing. And what Mark was just saying of, people going in circles, they get kind of stuck. But if we can help people think through things and know when we're temporary to that community, I think that disruption of people coming in with their ideas and then leaving again after 2 years is really hard for communities and managing that and knowing it. So I found what has been said very valuable. I cannot get on the Jamboard, so I cannot see what's there, but I will try later on a different day. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Stacia, for emphasizing also that need for collaboration and coordination, and to be good to maybe hear some reflections also of how to best do it. What are some of the key pieces? Because there's a lot of recognition, I think, for that, but and what are the kind of parts that work in this and that not? I mean, one thing that has been mentioned already is kind of to not just come in, come out, but are there some other reflections from the panel on that? I mean, there is a lot of call for collaboration from your perspective. What works well? What are some mechanisms or that can really move to real collaboration? Does any of the panelists want to comment on that?
Right, maybe I can just share a short example from something I've been involved in recently, slightly unexpectedly, because I think it's an important kind of example of how we can benefit from the things that we don't know. So I'm not a quantum computer scientist, it may shock you to hear, but a research institute based in Geneva got in touch with us at the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and said they were working on the application of quantum computing to the Sustainable Development Goals. And that sounded fantastic to us. So we had a few working sessions, and a paper's just been published today, actually, which I can share with anyone here who's interested, about how we can tackle various issues around agriculture and hunger and malnutrition using quantum computing. Now that's not the important thing. I admit that quantum computing is a long-term horizon thing and we're not there yet. But what I think is really interesting is that mechanism through which a research institute with a specialism in a particular technology, in this case a very advanced technology, brought it to an organization, a kind of implementing organization that could apply it to their sector. They simultaneously did the same in health, and they did the same in a couple of other sectors that I'm not forgetting. Energy, I think, was one. That seems to me like kind of the reverse of what we're talking about, but still a very worthwhile process, as in rather than having the outcome and working back and seeing who the different actors are in the process, I think there is actually a lot of benefit in kind of trying to democratize the solutions of it and saying, here are all the things that we know now how to do because of fantastic technological advances. How do you apply that to your context? And that is a richer process. Coming back to the point that Stacia made a minute ago, that is a much richer process if we can do that in this participatory fashion, where we're getting together, ideally the people in context, in country, working in the sectors that we want to affect, trying to create, as I think we all know this here, trying to create an innovation in isolation and then go and enforce it somewhere is not the way to go about things. So sort of take the solution territories, take the problem territories, bring together the stakeholders on both sides, and I think you can design something really compelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to really invest in kind of that innovative collaboration and collaborative learning space, and early on, like Megan, I think, was also saying, has a lot of of benefit, and is maybe sometimes taken a bit for granted, but to really actively further invest in that. Okay, and any other final questions from the audience or from the panel, or any comments before I move to kind of a quick wrap up Menti? Yeah, feel welcome to. Yeah, I think there is. I see a question of how do we get involved from Luinka. Maybe you want to raise your question out loud, and panelists can also suggest different ways, as I think there are different ways depending of to get involved, very concrete. And there is the Innovative Food System Solutions portal that has also direct LinkedIn community, and where there are different very concrete actions there, but as well as in some of the other initiatives. But the portal links also several of the initiatives discussed here. Does anyone want to further comment on that? I'll just quickly share my screen. And please raise your hand, you can speak while I'm moving here.
Maybe, I know that Leonard is on the call. Maybe Leonard, you can share the link to the global community of practice on scaling. I think that is where a lot of different sectors, health, education, agriculture, people, interested in these kinds of things that we have been discussing, that they will be interested in joining. So maybe Leonard, if you can, and otherwise I'll try to look it up.
Great, yeah, and please do reach out. Just put your name if you want to follow up in the chat or in the Jamboard, and we can connect also further on that way. Now, as we are wrapping up this session, we would like to get some reflections as we finish. So we invite you to go to menti.com and to put in this code. We'll also put it in the chat. Maybe Heather, can you put it in the chat, or you can just scan the barcode. I'll give everyone a minute to go there. Yeah. And here you can also still see the menti.com link with the code. So here, this is maybe just a very stupid question, but we just also want to get a little bit of feeling, or did you discover, learn, or think anything new during the session? And yeah, you can be very honest with it, but also if this was all kind of familiar for you. But then the follow-up question is then also what we would like to capture, also what that was. We'll see if people can get into the Menti. Yeah, this is to see also if the system is working. What we really want to get also is to what did you like? What are some of the things you discovered or learned or had a new thought about during the session? And you can put 3 things in here. There's still a yes from, I think, from the previous one. So we'll just give a few minutes of time. They are coming. So we see collaboration opportunity, ongoing initiative, reinforced systems, community participation, new people, scaling up different view, ideas coming. Then we'll move to a question that we discussed quite a lot in this session, but that we would really also see kind of your perspective after this discussion. What are some factors that are barriers for innovations to contribute to transformative systemic change, or we should say innovation ecosystems? And the next question is about what factors are enablers for such innovations. Yeah, complexity, funding, power imbalances, coordination, or the complexity of coordination, finance, knowledge gap, lack of inclusion. We heard that quite a lot today, like how can we further democratize this system and these systems. We're also getting into the geopolitics, war, which is of course a very disruptive factor.
Right, while the words are coming up, Leonard just posted an interesting comment in the chat. Maybe we have a second to address it before we close.
Great, yes. Okay, I'll just open the last question and then people can put in their comments while we go indeed to that.
I know we're just reaching the end of time, so it's a bit cheeky of me to sneak it in, but it was just because I was thinking about something I think is kind of optimistic in a world that is often a bit pessimistic as our problems continue to mount. But you said, you asked, yeah, how do we break down current systems for new ones to emerge? And I was talking to someone about this the other day, saying the food system is just so complex. How on earth do we get out of the situation that we're in now and really move it comprehensively towards a new approach? And they said to me that it's easy to think in those terms, but think 20 years ago, how many of the systems that we rely upon today didn't exist? How much things have changed technologically and in terms of lifestyle and in terms of just our day-to-day. And I think that's not a bad way to look at things, because in answer to your question, how do they change? I think it's when a better alternative comes about. It's when we find a different way of working and a different set of services, set of solutions, set of products that replace the previous ones, not because it was the right thing to do, but because it was the better thing to do. It made more sense. It was better for people and planet and price and everything else that comes into play. So I think that's where we're getting to. I think we need to be optimistic in looking at the shape of the system that we're creating and believe that that will replace the old system by its inherent betterness. That's the hope I hold, at least.
Yeah. That we really can also learn. I think there was an earlier comment in the chat there, also really learn of how the systems in the past have kind of quickly changed, of being replaced, but so it's not impossible. But I think, yeah, and that engaging with the power imbalances and the power structures of it is kind of also really important part of that. I think it has come up a couple of times today, and how can we link the innovation ecosystems to engage with that is also really a good point to further reflect upon, I think. Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone, for your great contributions. Thanks a lot to the panel for really great reflections and points to make and to take with us while we move forward. And we will be documenting this to feed into the FAO Science and Innovation Strategy team. So this has been really helpful, and we'll communicate some notes on this further on. Do keep kind of the ideas coming via email, via the LinkedIn communities, via the Jamboard, whatever works best for you. So this is an ongoing process, and this is just a snapshot. This discussion is just a snapshot of it. So we really look forward to connect with all of you as connection and collaboration, not just kind of snapshot collaboration, but really long-term constructive collaboration has been emphasized a lot today. So let this platform or this discussion hopefully has contributed to that. So thanks a lot, and I'll see if there's any other kind of final comment that anyone wants to make, and then we'll finish. And yeah.
Thanks to our moderator. Thanks for chatting up. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks everyone. And yeah, it's also a learning process to moderate these type of complicated things to discuss. But thanks a lot for everyone for their contributions and very active chat. We will definitely also save the chat and take notes on that. So yeah.
Great.
Thanks everyone, and have a good evening, afternoon, or the rest of your day.